Osher Günsberg podcast. The Osher Günsberg podcast.
How are you, Paul?
I'm good.
Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, no, it's exciting. It's good.
Yeah, it is. I'm excited, because independent digital broadcasting is an exciting space to be in.
It is.
And here we are.
We are.
In it, a part of the very disruption that will threaten the incumbent ways that you and I make money.
Exactly.
But it's all good.
It is really good.
Where are we?
We are in the lounge, the Air New Zealand lounge at Sydney International Airport, which is pretty cool. The new lounge is awesome, and this colour scheme is fab, and the chairs are actually comfy.
Yes.
You know how you go to a lot of these places, they don't want you to sit down because the chairs are awful to sit in a lot of lounges I've found.
It's kind of like a secret world that exists within airports only for people who fly a lot.
Exactly.
Like a lot.
Exactly.
And then there's levels of secret world. There's the general kind of gate sitting around, sleeping across 4 seats, sort of general populace.
Yeah.
And then there's the one particular lounge where you can go to, and there's usually a little buffet. Maybe you can get a free beer.
Yeah.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
And then there's the other lounge where you're like, what can I get you, Mr. Middleditch?
Absolutely.
Where's the menu? Oh no, we just make what you want.
Oh no, absolutely, yeah, exactly. And it's like, with these fruit are in season, you're in the right place, and and particularly when they cook it all fresh for you and stuff, it's pretty good.
And this is one of those rooms.
It is. It's one of those rooms, and I don't know why they allowed us to have this much of this cooler place.
Yeah, it's
for us to
taken up a large amount of real estate.
Yeah, indeed.
With a really good view.
Paying customers can actually be sitting on this shit.
But you carry a lot of sway with the good folks at Air New Zealand. You've just done their latest television campaign.
Yeah, Dave the Goose.
Dave the Goose.
Yeah, he's awesome. Well, he's a goose, but he's Brian Brown Goose, which is pretty fab. Because I've known Brian for a long time, worked with him in the past, and that was pretty exciting, working with Brian again, because he's an amazing actor, amazing guy.
G'day, I know what you're thinking. Why is that bird boarding an Air New Zealand flight to Los Angeles? Well, I used to do all my own long-haul flying, but this migrating across the Pacific thing is hard work. How long till we land, mate?
Mate, about 17 days. Isn't the weather nice?
Where'd he go?
This is part Brian, part you.
Yeah, Brian's the good. Well, I'm kind of the idiot leaping around physical stuff. They got me in a green suit and put dots all over me, and they said they had to give me a false stomach, like a woman pregnant, like silicon stomach, which looked awful. So I had to wear that thing and basically goose around and do all of the movements for the goose and stuff, which I know this sounds weird, but I actually looked at what geese do and how they move and their necks and stuff, which are they're quite like sort of snakes and so on. So I basically look like I made a fool of myself because they were all watching me when I was doing this. I mean, I remember when I first saw the first finished animation of one moment in it where the steward goes, "Kia ora, welcome aboard." And then the goose goes, "Sorry?" And literally it was Brian's ad-lib with that, and they did it with the little goose doing the little head move, and it was perfect. And then I went, right, we're on a winner. This is going to be great. So it was fun.
I think that's a really tricky part, which we'll get into, I'm sure. But when it comes to animating anthropomorphic human qualities onto animals, it can either look fantastic or it can be a bit like
shit.
Yeah. Like the straight-to-DVD Disney stuff that not everybody sees.
Tinkerbell.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
It's not that.
But that did go, I think, straight to DVD. Oh, no, the Barbie movies do as well. But
do you watch the Barbie TV show?
No.
The Barbie TV show is absolutely hilarious.
Really?
It's on Netflix.
Great.
My 12-year-old watches it. It's ball-bustingly funny.
Wow. Well, my daughter's 12, going on 13, so I'm going to have to get her onto it. But we digress.
No, that's
we
okay.
We were talking about 3D animation.
We were talking about 3D
And the
animation.
guys who made it are this amazing post-place called Blockhead, which are in they're New Zealand based, but they're also now here in Australia. And they did an astounding job because it was an enormously long period that it took to get it that good, and there was so many layers of stuff you'd keep going back and reworking. And it was interesting because just before we started doing this, probably the best piece of character animation, which was the Jungle Book, came out, and that was an eye-opener. I mean, it was like we all looked at him and wow. Yeah, but you know what I mean. And so yeah, even though we're dealing with one character, I think the interesting thing, and this is the interesting, sad, and scary, is some people think we actually shot it with a real goose, and we animated the mouth and stuff. You know what I mean, like Babe and stuff like that. People think we actually shot it with a real, and some of it does look like a real goose, of course. And the goose looks very believable and very real.
Did you know these guys were voted best airline in the world 3 years in a row? Probably not. Kiwis, eh? Never blow their own trumpet. Except about the rugby.
Thank you. See you again.
Sure will.
I think what's great about it is he's such a complex character in terms of just the layers of how he, which is what, you know, Brian Brown brings to it so wonderfully. And I think that's why people love it from that point of view, because you're not sort of watching an animated character, you're just watching a guy.
Yeah.
An Aussie goose guy. Pretty funny.
Well, can you take us through it? Because, I mean, television commercials are a part of everybody's day.
Yeah.
No matter who you are, what you do through your day, you will see at least 15 seconds of some sort of animated commercial or visual moving commercial through your day, whether it's on your phone, on your tablet, on your laptop, on a billboard now when you drive down the street.
That's what happens all the time when I'm doing stuff. Somebody from an agency will say, hey, I've got to show you this reference, and then an ad will come up and they go, oh, I hate this. It's true, they just come up.
I made
and
that.
it's such an irony because we're trying to get to something because we're making an ad and we hate watching the ad because anyway, keep going.
But these things are a part of everybody's life, and you've been doing it for nearly 20 years.
Over 20 years I've been doing it. I've been directing commercials now for, I can do the math. I've been doing them nearly 30 years. I started when I was a kid. Like a real, like serious. I started shooting ads at the age of 20, like television commercials.
Wow.
But I started directing when I was 17.
Well, I do want to get to that. We do have time. So people would have seen your work. Can you take us through, if we could go backwards to the first point where someone calls you up and says, hey, Paul, I want to do an ad for an airline and there's a goose involved, or does the goose come later? Like, where does it even start? Where does a project like that even begin?
Well, it always starts with an agency and it starts with a script and an idea. Advertising, I've always, and I think it's true and always has been true, it's just about really good ideas. The best advertising is good ideas. Great technique is always very helpful, and that craft is, but it's always about great ideas. And I think that ultimately, some of the simplest ads I've ever seen that I love so much are just that they're a great idea. I mean, we were discussing this before we started this, that Old Spice thing you were talking about. It's so simple because even something like that ad, which is about the kind of idiocy of the language that's being used, is just really, and it could only exist in advertising. There's ideas that can only exist as an advertising concept. So for instance, an ad that I did, the big ad, for Cartlon Draught. I did pretty much all the Cartlon Draught ads. That was about, that was a brilliant idea. I mean, even the concept of made from beer, but the idea of making an ad about people singing about being in an ad. And yeah, it could only exist in advertising, but that's why it's so, I think those sort of ads, the reflexivity of it is brilliant. And that's what I love about, advertising from an ideas point of view, where they actually start to mock their own industry.
So, Air New Zealand, the agency, the advertising agency that Air New Zealand go to.
You did ask me a question, didn't you? You asked me a question about where did it come from.
Your job to answer. It's my job to ask them. Let me just, for folks who aren't in the industry. So, Air New Zealand, we have an airline. We want more people to get on our airline. We want people to realise that we fly to different parts of the world, not just New Zealand and Sydney. We can fly you to Buenos Aires. We can fly you to Texas. We can fly you to Los Angeles. What should we do? How can we get this across? I know. How can we showcase the inside of the planes? Da-da-da-da-da. They go to an agency. They say, this is what we want. The agency come back with, we've got this idea. There's a goose involved.
Yeah, they pitch it to the client. The client goes, yes, I love it, or I don't. And that's why a huge amount of something like Air New Zealand is about having a great client who goes, they recognise, yeah, this is a great idea. It's very easy to do safe advertising, of course.
This is the airline that had Richard Simmons do their in-flight safety.
That's true.
All right, so
Yeah.
let's not forget they're not afraid.
No, and that's the tradition that they have, though. I mean, their advertising for a long period of time has been great. And I think even down to, I mean, I remember seeing the All Blacks in-flight thing that they did, which I loved. I thought was really awesome. Yeah, and I think Air New Zealand has a reputation of entertaining. And I think people sort of pursue it. It's like the pedigree of something like Guinness and advertising. And, you know, you always look. And now, for instance, something like Old Spice, they're now known for great ads.
Yeah.
You know?
It's funny, as you said that, all I can think is da-da, 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 da-da,
Exactly.
da-da. I can't afford to pay the rights for that song. Anyway, so they come to you with a script and they pitch the client. The client said, "This is great, Goose, great idea."
Yep.
Do they then have a list of directors, or the agency just knows we know one guy and one guy only that can pull this off?
Well, no, there's a lot of directors out there. I mean, this industry is, you know, it's a very popular job and has become more popular. I think also in technology, it's become a lot easier to be able to attain experience now because you can shoot stuff really easily. When I started, I had to, you know, ask my dad for a Super 8 camera, and then you know, you have to wait a week for the film to go and get processed and come back and realise it's overexposed, and then, you know, you would then go back and redo it or whatever. And then video came out, VHS, and I remember running around with a porta pack and a car
It was a
battery.
two-piece unit.
Yeah, it was like, I looked like, you know, it was just, and a huge camera. It was nothing, you know, it was really bulky and massive and unwieldy. But I used to make all my student films with that, and I won a competition in New Zealand called Spot On 4 years in a row, which got me into, because it was judged by professionals. And then they said, why don't you start making stuff? So I got offered to do music videos and television stuff. So I kind of just left school having, you know, my film school, because there was no film school in New Zealand. I self-taught myself at school in a way. So it is interesting that what you were saying about directing and directors. Yes, there are a lot of them out there. So they would go, okay, who can we get to do this, or who's available, and so on. But yeah, they normally have a list. And I'm lucky enough over a long period of time for people to obviously know my work, but also have a lot of long-term ongoing working relationships. I've worked with some people for nearly 25 years, you know, and work with them, you know, probably every year. So it's great like that. It's really good.
So these people have then called you up and you go, oh, I know that agency and I know that client. This will be a fun gig.
Oh, yeah.
I reckon I can bring something to this.
Yeah.
And, oh, there's a goose involved. Oh,
Yeah.
okay, I know how I'm going to do this. Is that the sort of stuff that starts
Well, I
flashing
tell
through
you
your
the
head?
thing that was a real challenge with this was when I've seen a lot of ads with animated characters, and normally 9 times out of 10 there's something lacking. So I was really excited about wanting to do this and do this really well, and I wanted to make sure it was really funny, and I wanted to make sure that it was something that people hadn't really seen done this way. And what was interesting for me was I think when I pitched it to them, my pitch as a director was more, rather than, hey, I mean, apart from, hey, this is a great idea, as I was saying, advertising's ideas, but I went, hey, this is, as a director, my view is I would like to give you a series of things that I see as possible problems, rather than, hey, we can do it like this. I go, it's got to be like, we're going to have to do it this way, we're going to have to do this, or it's not going to work.
What were those things?
Those things were to do with blocking. They were to do with the animators following the performance of the actor. Very similar to what Pixar do. But more than that, it was also studying the actual animal itself. And they actually had they had a stuffed goose. Poor goose. Whatever they found. But they
In the animation studio.
They found a stuffed goose. And they scanned all that. And so it's incredibly lifelike. But then, yeah, we basically went and watched lots of stuff And they're quite hilarious in terms of the way they walk and how they move, and like their heads are like snakes. They're quite amazing. And so it was a lot of fun looking at that, but then going, we've got to really make this this animal behave and act like it would in the real situation. So that was really fun. So there was a lot of things to be mindful of. It was going to be a long process, and it was a really long process, but it turned out
6 months, a year?
I think the post on it was anywhere up to 4 to 5 months, because it's a 2-minute commercial, which is really long, and he's in everything. So it was, yeah, it was a remarkable job that they did.
As a director, did you think, Andy Serkis is probably busy making another Lord of the Rings film or a Planet of the Apes 7 or something? We're not going to get that bloke. Who do I know that can do this? No one. I'll do it. At what point did you decide I'm going to be the goose?
I don't know, because it's certainly, there's not an ego thing in it, because I look like a fuckwit, you know what I mean? And because I got dressed up in this green outfit and they had tracking markers all over me.
So that's basically, so as you move, the animators can see where your elbows are.
And a lot of that was more to do with body language for timing, for humour. Because what I did is I had Brian's soundtrack and I was miming to it. So, yeah, Brian, and I'd be actually miming being the goose. And they had my cap, because I wear a cap normally anyway, so that was kind of the beak area. And then they wanted to make sure I had enough girth.
Because the front of a goose protrudes.
Yeah, he's got a beer gut, basically.
Wow.
And
it's wings.
Yeah, it was a big gut thing. And so they gave me a pregnant woman's silicon stomach.
Excellent.
That's good times. And so I whacked this on. And so they had sort of 5 cameras going when we were shooting, and I spent maybe 3/4 of a day blocking the whole thing. And then that material was used and got out too. They decided, nobody said, do you mind if we show this? Yeah, no, this looks good.
So they made the big, like kind of Lily Tomlin chair for you to sit on. They made like a really big airline seat?
No.
It's just you on a couch?
Yeah, it's just me, yeah. There's stuff they build up, and yeah, no, it wasn't that. And I think another reason I did it was because I'm cheap. Because we wouldn't have to pay anybody to do that. Yeah, it was one of my great regrets, I think. It's pretty humiliating. I must admit, sitting there, and I just feel like an absolute dork. You know what I mean? And it's like, but not fun.
But as a director, how are you going to, like, particularly there's a line in the ad where they refer to pavlova.
Good evening, sir. What can I offer you for dinner? I've got the chicken couscous or, sorry, vegetable curry it is.
Bingo. Delicious Kiwi cuisine. Have you got anything Australian? Like Pav?
And there's a look to camera that the goose
does. That's an Eddie Murphy look. That's Eddie Murphy's look from Trading Places, where they took. Do you know that look?
Of course,
where he talks about
the
pork belly is such as one would find in a bacon, lettuce, and tomato sandwich. And he does that look, and it's a very deliberate half head cock turn.
Yeah.
I did that, but I stole that from Eddie.
Yeah. But you are basically you're breaking down. I mean, as a director, most of the time you're trying to get actors to do the things that you see in your brain. This time you didn't have to do it.
No, but it was kind of cool because when we got the timing, it took us a long time to get that head at exactly the right time and hold the shot for the right amount of time to get the humour from it. When he goes, you got anything Australian, like Pav? and it was great fun. Those little things is where he came to life. That was I loved all that stuff because him as a character. You see, Brian. What I love is Dave as a character was very much like Brian walking into the studio. He's like, "G'day, Ditchy, here you go, I might come in, fucking good." Yeah. And he'd get into the booth and. Well, he doesn't swear. I swear a bit, but he didn't swear. But he'd get into the booth, and he was very animated and very eager, and great ideas. So you had this kind of idea of this goose it's almost like his first trip. Those really annoying people you fly with, who ask you inane stuff like, "You going on a trip?" well, yeah, I'm in a plane. You know what I mean? And that
Where
sort
are
of
you
stuff. Exactly, yeah, off to LA, me too. Funny you think, and that was what was wonderful about Brian, is he had the idea, it's almost like this goose came from Orange. You know what I mean? And he hadn't really seen much. We had a whole sub thing going on, which I won't go much into, but the thing is, the idea of what would it have been like if he was at the, because we shot at the Mondrian in LA, which is probably the most distinctive bar.
It's a beautiful bar. It's on
And
Sunset
everybody
Boulevard.
who knows it sees that and goes, they did shoot that in LA.
Yeah,
and they know
I was like,
exactly
wow,
where-
you went to LA for that. You really did.
Yeah.
OMG. Good one, champ. You look very familiar. You an actor?
Discover a better way to fly to North and South America.
Kia ora, sir.
G'day.
How are you today? Travelling to LA?
Yeah. And he comes in and we actually had the idea, what would it be like if he met a girl, you know, and how would he be responding to her, you know, if she was trying to pick him up or something like that. And his inane responses were, you know, like, hey, what are you going to be doing later? Probably sleeping and have something to eat. You know what I mean? and you just had the idea that this guy, and I think that would be an exciting thing for the continuing journey of Dave, to see what it'd be like if he met another goose, like from South America.
Oh,
It'd be kind of,
migratory.
oh, you know what I mean? Could you? That'd be cool, man. I mean, what a brilliant idea. There's no better idea, I reckon, than a migrating bird chooses this airline to fly with. It's kind of good, eh? I mean, it's brilliant. So
Well, if this airline flies to, we're talking New Zealand, they fly to South America, so you never know.
they do, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Hint. But I'm saying, but I think it would be great if we could do stuff like if he goes to Europe and stuff and things like that. And
Not everyone's going to be a directing a commercial today, but everyone listening, everybody watching, at some point will have to come up with a creative solution for something. Clearly, as someone who's, if there's one thing, like I know as from my career in television and my career as a photographer, you're not really shooting photos, you're just solving problems all day. That's all you do, is solve problems. And if what is on this,
it's people skill stuff.
yeah.
It really is. It's
So-
like it's sort of somewhere you get it almost. While it feels like the gravitas of the United Nations, it's not obviously that important. But when you're in a room and discussions are going on about things that appear to be that important, you know, I've had discussions about, you know, I've had discussions about the height of the top on a beer and how high it has to be to the millimeter.
The head.
The head. And how they view that as being how long the beer's been there, how fresh it is, and, you know, and it's like, and, you know, I'll never have that time back again.
But I guess what I want to ask is that not everyone is going to be, not everyone's going to be directing a commercial today.
Yeah.
But everyone's going to have to come up with a creative way to solve a problem. So when you're faced with a problem, whatever it might be, what do you do? How do you go about solving those problems in a way that makes you what you do?
Well, I tell you, here's a great quote that I heard, which isn't mine. If it had been, that would have been good. But it's like, everybody can be a director when it's going great. You can only really be a director and solve it when it's going bad. And that's the truth. Like, when everything's going fine and everything's just falling into place, really. But it's when things don't turn out the way you expect, something goes wrong, say a performance isn't how you're thinking, or just the real simple stuff like, because this is interesting, where they go, hey, this is going to be funny. And you go, I hope it's going to be funny. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but you know, with me, you're going to have a pretty good shot, it'll be funny. But from that point of view, there is a lot of expectation. You do go, it's like a stand-up comedian, make me laugh. But very much so, that's what you do when you're, particularly if you're shooting television commercials and you're shooting funny ads.
When you very, very first started doing this, I think I certainly, as someone who works in radio and television, I made my own radio shows by pressing pause on the tape deck and then unpause and recording my voice, then pressing pause, waiting for the good song to come on, then unpause. And then
wow, because
pause.
I used to do tape stories as well. when I was really young, like 6 or 7 or 8 years old, and then I went to doing film. So I used to do tapes, and I'd make sound effects, and so I get like little bits of bush and
I do
we're
my own
going
Foley.
through the
Oh,
bush,
yeah.
you know, and all of that. And you'd
Oh,
play
yeah.
music, and it was kind of cool. And you'd do sound effects, and we used to find things that we'd build stories around sound effects. Like my brother could do a really good biplane, like. And so we would just go, right, we'll do a World War I biplane story. You know, like, here we are, and then you'd always go, you go, hey, we're up here in the biplane, aren't we? Yeah. Well, you know what I mean? It was pretty funny as kids. It's music, and then you'd just do other things like he used to do really good sea waves, like. So we go, okay, we'll do a beach story.
So you're still a kid. This is what you're doing with your
I'm
playtime.
still a child. I'm an infant. My wife said that to me actually just this morning.
Oh, you're still a
She
child.
said to me, she says, you are still a child, but not in the. Well,
You know what I say to my fiance when she says that to me? I was like, yes, and you're here.
exactly. I
You choose
know.
to be here.
I know. I did say to her, I said, we've got children. Why did you do? Is this what? Is this new? You know. But I must admit, now the kids are getting older. I think there's something very important about, and it's actually something that. The advertising industry particularly, but it is a Peter Pan industry. It's full of a lot of people who kind of get into it and don't really change as they get older.
I just want to explore the idea that what you did for play as a kid is the thing you managed to turn into the thing that pays you bills.
It's pretty lucky, I think, from the point of view of doing advertising with humour. I mean, for instance, there are people out there who work in advertising who do like food shots, and people out there who do perfume, hair, or stuff like that. And I'd put a gun in my mouth. You know, I'm lucky I shoot comedy and I shoot funny stuff.
When was the first
it makes things so much more enjoyable and fun.
When was the first time you played something back to someone that didn't know you and you got a laugh out of them?
First time. I used to make funny videos with my brother, and they were really obscene and wrong, because we used to listen to Cheech and Chong all the time on the tapes. And so we sort of wanted to make video versions of that. And so we were talking about stuff we knew nothing about. Because we were in Wellington, so for instance, all the drug references, we didn't even know what they were. We didn't know what's Tide Stick, or what's this, or what's a lewd, or we didn't know any of that, but we thought that was funny and cool. And so we'd sort of make these obscene comedy things about stuff we knew nothing about. But my dad knew some about it, not that he ever smoked dope or anything like that, but he'd come in and watch them and laugh his head off. So that was the first laugh we got, even though my father really should have been laughing at this obscene stuff.
But making your dad laugh like that...
It's pretty cool as a kid. If your dad laughs, you know, it's good. And considering, you know, I think a lot of it also comes from... and I think the need of enjoying making people laugh often does come from a certain lack of, how could I say, self-confidence. It's actually quite true.
Yeah.
You know, or guys who are comedians or stuff like that, they're normally doing it because they're not necessarily the most secure individuals.
So when you made somebody laugh, what feeling did it give you?
Felt loved. I know this. Now we're starting to.
No, I'm really
joking.
honestly
No, but I'm
asking.
saying no. When you, I think anybody who makes people laugh, I think they feel really good that people are enjoying. I mean, like at a dinner party or anywhere, at the pub or anything like that. You know, kids at school are like that. I mean, both my kids have a really good sense of humour, and Stella makes a lot of her classmates laugh.
And that
You know.
has been a thing that is a constant theme in everything you've done. So even the stuff you did in high school.
I was a very serious guy at school. Yeah, I was I was a brooding artist with glasses, with the dress sense of a mailman, and like I never had no woman would go near me, no girl would go near me, and I don't blame them. I look back at photos, and it's high. But then I got contact lenses and started to work on my personality. And then I actually started to get a bit more confidence. But no, I was a very serious young guy at school. I used to paint.
Oh.
I still do. And so I came from an art background. I was either going to be a painter or a filmmaker. And to tell you the truth, when I was at school and I was doing this national competition, there was nobody else doing it. So I went, well, this will be a lot easier way of making a living if I want to do it for a job. My dad was so supportive. It wasn't like, "What are you, that's not a job," you know, which was great. And
Because everybody now can, like, I could pick up my iPhone
and make a movie, put
and
it on
I
a
could-
computer.
I have the technical ability to make a limited, but I could, with one lens and terrible sound, I could make a story, and I can edit it and I can publish it. It's in my pocket.
See, that's interesting though. The old cameras were like that. You had a Super 8 camera, had one lens, it had a zoom lens. It had no sound or shit sound. I mean, we had all the same problems, all the same, but it was just so much more laborious and harder to do.
But there was also a massive barrier to entry in that you had the initial expense of buying the camera.
Yeah.
And then having to pay for the developing every time. So how did you even know as a kid, because you mentioned earlier I had a Super 8 camera, how did you even know as a kid that, oh, that's the thing that you have to make the pictures that move? Like, how did you even know?
Well, I tell you, I actually saw the first of these spot-on film competitions. Actually, Peter Jackson entered the first one. And he made an animated thing with dinosaurs and stuff, which was actually pretty cool. And I watched that and I went, I could do that. I think that because I saw other kids doing it.
And you're 10?
I was 10 then, I was about 9. But yeah, and that's when I went to my dad and said, could I get a camera? And I was, because my dad was a building contractor and he had been a carpenter, and we came from a working class family. So I wasn't sure if he'd be able to get me a camera. But he did, which was really cool. And then he said, as long as you use it, and I used it every weekend.
Now, what kind was it? Was the one that had the daylight reels? Or do you have the canisters?
It was a Canon 512.
Oh, yeah.
But then, and then I think for my 15th birthday, he bought me a Canon GX88E, which was a video camera. And it was just when VHS came out. But you used to shoot it with a porta pack you'd have beside you. And then the batteries would last like no time at all. So he hooked it up to a car battery that I could carry around. So it was like, it was ludicrous, all the stuff that I had. But that was what I made all those student films with. And I started making kids movies. I started making monster movies and stuff. And then I decided, how am I going to get my classmates to be? I'll make war movies, because they all want to dress up as soldiers.
We need a biplane sound. I've got a biplane sound.
Yeah, exactly, and a biplane sound. But then...
so you're editing in camera at this point?
No. I started doing it, and then I actually cleaned this whole building to get some edit time to be able to cut these movies that I had, these really special movies I had to enter for this film competition. So I made a lot of different stuff, but I had by sort of my major works.
Sorry to interrupt you, but how did you even know that? How did you even explore the process of filmmaking? Because it was so much then. It was very much behind a wall of, we shoot this shot, which is just a single, and then we shoot for the wide, and then we shoot, this camera over here.
I just watched a lot of films.
And
so I
reverse
just looked at
engineered
them and I could see them, And I actually studied editing as well. So I learned how to cut. I actually learned how to cut when I left school, and a guy called Michael Horton taught me, who actually cut Once for Warriors and cut one of my feature films, because I've done 4 features. And my first 2 features, for instance, are very different from, as I said, I was a very serious young man. So when I did my first movies, they were art films. And 2 of them were, did all the film festival circuits and stuff like that. And they were, real art movies. And then I made Separation City with Joel Edgerton about 4 or 5 years ago. And that was set in New Zealand. And then I got to do a Hollywood film, which was a kind of mad comedy with Anna Kendrick, which the guys from Anchorman produced, which was awesome. So, and I'm still doing films as well, so developing those.
So, I guess I'd just like to get a picture of, as a kid, this thing that you started out doing audio-wise, you're telling stories the whole time. So you started doing it on cassette, then you started doing it on Super 8, then you started doing it on video. And was this just consuming all of your time that you weren't at school?
Yeah, well, I told you, I'd never get a date or anything, and so I would literally, I'd do it all the time, and and I think the interesting.
And you folks saw that and went, well, it's keeping him out of trouble.
I was never going to get into trouble.
Oh,
I was going to get into trouble. It's Wellington, remember, too, but it's like, Yeah, I know. And the really interesting thing is that I was a very, very conservative young guy. So I never really did any of what teenagers do. So I didn't go through any of that stuff. And that's what I said about a Peter Pan thing, because now I get into advertising. And then I kind of become a teenager in my 30s. You know what I mean? Like most people in advertising are.
So you finished high school and you'd already won these film competitions. So you had a fair amount of not only experience by just having done it yourself.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm assuming a couple of hundred times. You've buttoned on, you've buttoned off, you've figured out what made the shot not work or what made the shot work. And so by the time you leave, you've got not only these film competitions that you've won, you've also got all the people that you met through that. Who is the first guy that, I guess, you know, everyone at some point in our lives, there's someone that gives us permission to go ahead and do this thing that you think you're good at, and then someone says, no, you are actually good at it. Go ahead. You're okay. I let you. Away you go. There was certainly someone in my career. Was there someone in your career that said, hey, you should do this?
Well, there was, and I was about to say this guy called Douglas Jenkins, but I wasn't right. The first person who did that was Sam Neill. Now, he was the judge on the Spot on Film competition, and I made a film about the First World War. So I made these war movies, but then I actually made a war movie about something that was quite moving, because it was about my grandmother's brother who died in the Somme. And so Sam gave me the award for this thing, gave me this direction award. And he said the most wonderful things. I think from my memory, because I got a good memory, he said along the lines of, World War I in Kilburnie is quite an incredible thing, which was Kilburnie was in Wellington. He said, but it's a film of serious intent, and I take my hat off to him. And I went, that to me was, and I think that was also, everybody was really excited about that, because Sam Neill was like the biggest New Zealand actor of that generation for sure.
So it was Sam Neill, Mr. Jurassic Park himself, gave you this award.
Yeah, and this is the great thing, because my boy loves Jurassic Park, and we went to the opening of Hunt for the Wilder People. He was there. And the little boy was there too. I can't remember his name, that wonderful actor. But guess what? We want to go back to advertising. Taika did an ad for smoking marijuana in New Zealand, and he cast that kid in the ad, that little boy. And that's how he got the lead role, because he was so good in this ad.
Right.
I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's a brilliant ad about, it's sort of a take on a wonderful short film he made called, I think, 2 Cars, 1 Night, about Maori kids waiting for their dads, I think, who were in a pub.
Oh, yeah.
And they're both sitting in their cars talking to each other. And they sort of took that and then used that as the idea for this ad, a basis for the idea of this ad. And that's where he found that boy. And he's amazing.
Just got real!
Exactly.
Well, he's on the bolt action rifle.
Yeah, I know.
So good.
And what I love about that is that he creates that film creates its own universe in terms of rules. It's like this is the the rules that we have for how this is going to run, and it's brilliant because he just goes for it.
So let's talk about that. When you're making an ad, you've got 30 seconds, sometimes 15, to get 3 acts, an entire universe worth of rules, a tension and a resolution. With so many frames, you could probably count them on 2 hands.
750.
You've counted.
750 and 30. Yeah, I used to hold them.
750 frames you've got.
I used to cut on film. I used to cut ads on film, of course, and we'd do this, that's 5, 6 frames there. And, yeah.
So you get
750 in 30 seconds. That's all you got.
to tell your story.
But the thing is also, often, the nature of writing, because remember, it's always, I think, great ideas, it's what it's about, great ideas. You'll get a script, and it'll be 2 pages long. And you go, this can't be 30 seconds. There's no way. So the best writing is the scripts that work to their time, and normally it's really simple.
Of the commercials that you've done, what would you say is the one that you are, when it comes to, say, for example, setting up the rules of these fantastical worlds? There's 2,000 men in robes running through a field.
Well, that's the one I was about to say.
Oh, okay.
Big Ad would be my favorite, because I think that also was an ad that was culturally changed a lot of things in advertising as well.
How so?
I think because of the nature of the comment it was making about advertising, the way it did it. I think there's a lot of things that I mean, that ad was voted in D&AD in London as the greatest beer ad of all time, beating all the Guinness ads, everything, which was amazing. And
for folks who haven't seen it, it's I'm going to guess a couple of hundred men on set.
350 guys on the ground.
That you must have done many takes with.
Which is that was almost just after the technology had come out in Lord of the Rings, which was a thing called Massive. So we used that technology to make all the people on the ground.
The crowd.
The crowd, yeah.
Okay, and they are out in the field, and much like you may have seen at a halftime show at an NFL Super Bowl or a college football.
It's taking the piss out of the British Airways ads.
He has
They
to
had all those hundreds of people form like a big eye.
decision.
And they form shapes on the ground.
And they all came across the world and joined each other and stuff.
And you can't do that.
And so inside this
without
commercial you're making for beer, you're also going,
And to have
isn't this
the
ridiculous?
biggest,
We're making a massive commercial about
strongest,
beer.
Yeah, and the whole idea, it's a big ad, it's a very expensive ad, it's a bloody big ad. We hope to sell some bloody beer.
Be tough.
And that was very much
Actually, the sound of coming in a piranha.
Exactly, and they didn't research it either, but that was the truth.
Ignore it all.
Yeah, it was
refreshing
yeah, we do sell some bloody beer. We look pretty stupid if this thing doesn't work, because it was a big, expensive ad.
Made from beer.
So there's a real truth about that. But you see, the Cartlon Draught ads, which I'm so proud of the whole history of that. There was the one before that was The Man Needs a Canoe, which was the black and white one where guys were wandering around with canoes, which started the whole idea of made from beer.
A man's got to win. And to win, he has to do manly things. Make the tough decisions. Get on top and stay there. And you can't do that without a canoe. And to have the biggest, strongest, longest canoe, you need to be your best. Yes, life can be tough. And canoes can be awkward. So why not just ignore it all with a cool, refreshing Carlton Draught. Carlton Draught, made from beer.
Which is just a brilliant advertising concept, because it sort of doesn't make sense, but of course it makes sense. It's made from beer. So it's the absurdity of that, which I think is exquisite.
So inside this 750 frames you've got to tell this story,
That was 2 minutes. Sorry, that was 1 minute. That was a 60-second
that was a longer one.
But there was a 30-second version of it, which sort of started halfway through.
I didn't know there was a longer one.
No.
So it was a TV one.
The 60 is that's what it was, and then there was a 30-second cut down, which we just came in halfway through because we couldn't do anything else. So that was kind of pretty funny. But Camina Burana, see, that was really interesting. The music for that thing cost a fortune.
Yeah.
The rights, but they also got the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra to play it. They had 300 singers come in and do it. It was extraordinary. And you want to hear something funny? Very funny. The creators wanted to try and see, rather than saying frickin', they said the real F word. And the choir said no, which I thought was quite funny. They went, we're not going there. We'll say frickin', but we won't say fucking. So yeah, it was pretty funny.
When you are in these, in these 30 seconds, you've got to set up the who, what, where, why, how, and then resolve it.
Yep.
How do you then blow that out into making a feature? Like, what were the things you could take with you to a feature? What sort of things are you like, oh, I can't do this now?
Well, at the speed of shooting, I mean, because I shoot all the time and I shoot a lot of stuff, so it's like, if I was playing rugby or something like that, it means I'm practicing every day, working every day. Now, a lot of directors don't ever have that opportunity, and sometimes I do a movie one every 5 years. And in this part of the world, it's a hobby, you know what I mean? So from that point of view, it's even more difficult to keep working. So I think what I take from it is the speed that I get in terms of the skills of that, working with actors all the time. You get to experiment with a lot of technology with doing ads, which is great. But I started making short films before I ever started doing ads. So I was making 16mm short films for film festivals and stuff, and they were art movies that were, I think one of them was 24 minutes, another one was 28 minutes. So I made about 4 short films, and then I started working on a feature. So my first feature I shot, which was Terra Nova, I was 27 when I made that. And that was in 90, came out in 99, 9.
What have you discovered is the thing that makes people want to do their best job for you?
I think the thing that I learnt when I was younger, I didn't listen as much. And so I thought, right, this is how I'm going to do it. I think most young creative people are like that, you know. So when I realised that when I listened, learnt, and took more time to absorb everything in, then I realised as a director working with people, it was about me having people I work with who I trust, who I can make feel I need them to make my work as good as it can be. And also to be in a situation where I can make them feel excited and inspired. So one thing that I think I am known for is that I can always create a lot of really positive energy when we work. A lot of people have a lot of fun when I work with them. And I think they always feel that they never for a moment feel like I won't actually either listen to what they are wanting to do, and particularly even working with agencies. I always make sure they're right beside me. I don't put them over in another. Sometimes the director works away from the agency and the client, they get stuck over there. I don't do that, they're all around me. And I think that being inclusive like that is just because I think there shouldn't really, from that point of view, I think being insecure gets you nowhere. You've got to be just up front, you know. So if you've got a problem, I want to know here, rather than, you know, somebody wanders all the way across and we've just done something. I go, now that was brilliant. What do you want now? And they'll tap you and go, well, I just don't think it's any good. You know, that sort of stuff. It's always good to know why we're in there.
And what have you learned about delegation?
Yeah, I've learned. One thing I've learned about that is that if you've got the people around you who you really trust, it's not an issue at all. I make a lot of decisions very quick. I work very fast, so I make a lot of decisions very quickly, and just I don't kind of procrastinate much at all. And as I said, I shoot fast, but I think sometimes with comedy it's good. Comedy and repetition doesn't really go together very well.
Yeah, if you're doing 4 or more takes,
you're a goner.
It's not funny.
It's not good. And I've been really lucky to work with some really fine actors. Like, and as I said, making so many ads. Yeah, it's. I love actors, and I love working with actors, and I would say my closest friends are actors. All of them are actors. There's a lot of directors who kind of don't like actors. I love them. I think
So
they're wonderful.
talk to me about decision making, because you're going to have to make decisions that will either save you or cost you $100,000 at a time, 6 times a day when you're making a feature film or making a commercial. What have you learned about decision making?
I think what I've learned about it is that I think if you can actually see the wood for the trees from the point of view, if you go, look, if we get another camera here, we're going to save 3 hours overtime, and it's going to cost us a fortune compared to that. So what I do, and it's not always just a budget thing, but it is actually about going, there are ways of being smart about this. Quite often people just panic about something going over in one area, but then I go, like, oh, we can actually get things back on another area. And particularly when it comes to schedule, getting the film shot and getting it on time is always a challenge.
But is that the thing that sets directors apart?
No, I don't believe so. I mean, I think what sets directors apart is talent. I mean, it's interesting that, you know, my ambitions are very much in feature films as well, and I haven't really been able to pursue that as much as I'd want to, simply because my career's been so busy in advertising. But from that other point of view, I love that too, and it's actually I've been really enjoying that too, and I get a lot from it. I think when I made the big ad, I actually realised that people were really enjoyed this stuff. it wasn't just an ad. Some of the stuff, some of it was actually people really loved them, and they never forgot them. And so then I suppose I just had more internal pride, and then started to go, yeah, this is actually really something I am proud of. I think I was, but then I really embraced that. But now in film, I really want to kind of go back to making, because the last film that I made was pure entertainment, and it was and it was very
This is
much
the one with
like
Craig Robinson?
Yeah, the one it was like a crazy, it's a crazy comedy, and like some of the mad ad stuff that I'd done. But I don't know whether that's actually necessarily a style that I'd want to repeat. But it was awesome to do that, and it did a lot of good things for me. And I shot that movie in 16 days. And that's what I had, and it was like, oh, cool. And it's like, you're kidding me. And it was remarkable how we did that film in that time, and yeah. And it was one of those awesome things where I got my first residual check, because we've always been. I think the DJ was always trying to get residuals from ads, but they went, nah, forget that. We're not gonna do that. We pay enough money, for all this other stuff. But that would have been good as a commercial to get residuals for ads. But no, I got my first check from, it was great. I got my first residual check.
Some mailbox money.
And it was kind of cool. I went, wow, that's good. For an undisclosed amount, but it was good.
Oh, that's all right.
It was good. And I thought, but I knew how much the film had to make before I got it. So I was really happy about that. Because obviously the film had done really well from that point of view.
Oh, great.
But we made that movie, and they had already made their money on that picture before we'd even finished shooting it, because it was made so low budget. We called it micro budget pictures.
Yes.
And I think that, of course, they looked at me because they knew how fast I could shoot
Yeah.
and all those sort of things. And it's really interesting, that movie. Now, what I love is it's become the stoner classic. It's become a cult classic. And it was weird. My daughter again kept saying to me, somebody who I don't know, and some famous singer, Daddy, that's his favourite movie, your film. One of your favourite movies. I went, oh wow. And she said, can I see it? I said, never. Because there are some truly, truly obscene things in that picture.
If you could talk to the teenage version of you right now, it's probably not out there with a Super 8 camera making plasticine stop motion, but it's probably out there with an iPhone or a Galaxy or a Samsung or something, or even a webcam, with the ability to cut, has a dream of, I want to be a filmmaker. What should they do?
I've done a bit of teaching, and it's been weird. I've done teaching I've done teaching in Los Angeles. I've done teaching in Canada. I've done teaching at the film school here and in New Zealand. And I've always been asked that thing. What do you say? And I say, make films, make movies, and there doesn't need to be an excuse for it. You can make a movie about making cereal. If there's nobody around and you don't even have an idea, the idea of literally just taking some shots, put them together, have a narrative, see how you'd shoot it, how to be interesting, how to find ways of telling a story, and that's what I used to do. I'd shoot something on Saturday and I'd cut it on Sunday and made sure I only had to finish it by Sunday. I'd go to school and then I'd do another one, and whether that was I remember one I did, which was with a friend of my sister's, and she was basically, it was sort of, I don't know, kind of, it probably made as much sense as a French film. She was just walking with a rose in her hand, goes out to an edge of a cliff and looks longingly, and then walks back. But it took me a day to shoot it, and I put it with music and stuff, and it didn't mean anything, but it was like a scene in a movie. So that would be my advice. My advice would be just go out, shoot, and start to shoot, and the more that you shoot and the more repetition you have, the more you'll realize the mistakes, and you'll just have your own film school all the time. And it's easy to do, it really is. It is almost like being, say you want to be a stills photographer. Most people who want to do that and they're young just take a camera out and just photograph. You can do that also, just with a camera, and that would be my advice. Just do it. keep doing it. And even if it gets really hard, you just keep going and doing it.
Do you need to find a mentor? Do you need to find someone along the way that'll tell you what's good and bad?
I think what it's worth doing is looking at it and showing people, and then, and I think, finding somebody you may be able to show who's in the industry who can give you feedback and ideas it's always very valuable. I was the last of the apprenticeships in New Zealand, really. Jane Campion helped me, and Vincent Ward helped me, and Vince and I became really good, still are very good friends, and they were great mentors in a way, I think that's something that's missing. But my company, Plaza Films, the directors that I have there, I talked to all those directors, and I actually, because I never had that in any of the other production companies that I was in as a commercials director. You just had to do it on your own. I kind of, I'll look through stuff and they'll show me scripts and I'll talk to them about stuff and tell them about techniques and kind of do that. I try and teach them and show them stuff. And I've had a lot of directors who have gone on to be very, very successful and go and make their own companies.
And how does that make you feel?
I've been very happy with that. It makes me feel really good. And it makes me feel really good from the point of view is that I think that I love the industry, and I actually really love the karma that comes from that. It's good, it's fun, and I mean, and it is, we're making ads,
We're not digging ditches.
That's right. What did I say? We could be driving a truck. Actually, on the way out here, there was a serious road rage incident that was as bad as I've ever seen. A guy in a truck who got out of his truck in the traffic to start punching this guy in a taxi, in the passenger seat of the taxi. And it was like out of control. And there were cars behind it, and like they stopped the traffic. Who cares? But it was quite a dramatic. So there you go. You want to make a movie? Go make a movie about that. It was pretty funny. I'm sure somebody must have got it on camera. It'll be on the news or something.
There'll be a dash cam somewhere.
It was pretty funny.
Not for the passenger.
No, but he was having a go with this guy too, and they were both yelling at each other, going, they were swearing and screaming and going, "Yeah, piss weak, get out and let's have a fight. Come on!" He goes, "I'll smash your head in." It was really awful, and they were literally like, he was getting out of the car, and it was.
What matters that much?
Yeah, I know. The driver was probably a meth head anyway, so he was probably 2 sleeps to Christmas, Anyway.
Thanks so much for sitting in and having a chat with me in this beautiful
lounge.
lounge.
It's been really awesome. And
anytime.
Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Anytime, man.
Thank you. And I can't wait for you to do this little message to my daughter. She will be so excited.
Oh, yeah, let's
She will be so excited. Like, Dad suddenly won't be embarrassing. You're embarrassing, Dad. You're embarrassing me.
Well, let's do it.
We will do it.
I've got to shoot your photo too, all right?
Okay, no
Cool,
worries.
man.